Yeah, so I basically I'm from Albany, which is on the south coast of Western Australia, and I started working and studying at the same time straight out of high school. So I was actually 17 when I walked into uni, but turned 18 that year, and then studied and worked in vineyards the whole time. And
Yep.
then yeah, my first full time gig was at Leeuwin, but I was fortunate because I graduated. I did quite well at uni and graduated Dux over there at that uni and
Oh,
got the
just a
opportunity.
casual. Sorry, I'll just pick up
Yeah,
that other little ducks reference off the floor. I think you dropped that as well. So
quite
righto.
yeah, quite. But
Jesus,
I
that
don't I
that's
don't even
two.
know how to spell ducks.
I'm gonna start counting. That's two.
the amount of things I did at New Zealand time, like 2 a.m. to LA 5 p.m.
Yeah, Jesus. Was there a lot of that, or
So much. The weirdest ones was I was doing was I was eating dinner while they'd been eating dinner. I can tell this on the podcast if you want,
well,
but
mate, we're rolling, so we're doing
okay.
Here's your sound grab. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like there would be because we had a restaurant and it was all, we're doing the whole thing where there's minimal numbers. I was going into this room, setting up a podcast for like a dinner in Singapore or a dinner in LA. They would have a full like movie screen of me in the restaurant, and they'd send us the menu the night before, so the chef could kind of cook something. And the expectation was like I would eat while they were eating, but they were all talking
What?
to each other. And then
Fucking,
we would just do these winemakers dinners, like an absolute.
it's just how disconnected can we be? Oh
And
god, it was worthwhile trying, I suppose. But
What, you eating a
and I just
T-bone
remember,
steak or foie gras at
yeah,
6 o'clock in the morning, were you?
I just remember doing we'd hit mute, and the chef Casey McDonald, who amazing guy, used to be the head chef of the McConnell Group, and he's been over at Craggy for about 8 years. And it hit it on mute, and we both go, "What the fuck are we doing? Like, we could be eating a Vegemite sandwich like that."
yeah, they wouldn't know, they wouldn't care probably as well.
I so would have done that.
Mate, we got rolling, but I should say welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. Hello, TK.
Hey, Pete,
Sorry,
you're here actually in the right
all right.
studio.
We're going to start like this.
No, it's just the shoe was on the other foot.
Anyway,
It certainly starts
at
rolling.
some point in time, oh no, actually, we mentioned it last week when we recorded, Jules. You'll see this at the end. At some stage when it does get released, I completely fucked up last week and went to the wrong venue to record, which was challenging. Challenging at least.
He doesn't even know where his own podcast is going from.
I really didn't. I walked in, and because where we are now is the private dining room of RB's at the Wharf, and I walked in here last week super confident that we were filming in here, and there was a table
Filled
of
with 20
there was
doctors.
20 people in here, and I nearly fucking died. It was like, nope, that's not it. And then, as you can imagine, frantically searching through text messages to find out where the hell I was meant to be. But anyway, that's all good.
Yeah.
We're here today. We've got you with us, Julian Grounds from now Stonier, which is
Yeah.
exciting. So how long have you been back in Oz and with Stonier?
So yeah, got back at the end of last year. So starting around Christmas time.
Yep.
And yeah, so came back from Hawke's Bay in New Zealand, where I was the chief winemaker for Craggy Range over there, and yeah, still do a bit of consulting actually. So as you know, the family
Yep.
up your way, and keep really tight, great relationship with them as well.
Yeah.
So kind of if you're over there a few times a year.
Which is good. I think that's a really awesome thing. I think often, because when you started there, it was a big song and dance, right? Like I think I remember at the time going, that is awesome news because, Craggy is a brand. It's a strong, stable, very consistent brand, and I think you've made some great wines over the years, and I think it's really exciting when a brand like that sort of blue chip sort of brand gets someone in who's probably, and I don't mean this in any negative way towards anyone, but slightly more dynamic. Maybe is that I'm going to use that word
Yeah,
anyway.
you can say anything you want, and it wouldn't be a shade on some of the shit that was written. I can tell you.
Oh yeah, no, I bet.
Did
Did you get hammered? Did you?
Oh no, I mean, like it was everyone that it was from industry was the same reaction that you said. It was, and I remember having a text with Mike Benny, and he was just super pumped like yourself, and It's probably just the easy thing was like, I got tattoos and a beard and what have you, and the easiest thing would be like for some of them to go 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in that scenario in terms of how that. But
Never heard
I
that
think,
before.
yeah, and it was. So I think, like, it was funny from my perspective. I was just like, I didn't feel that at all. So it was just like that was just because I went through the interview process and it was so rigorous, and then when I got there, and and I was like, well, this is logical. It's like, I want to make fine wine. You guys want to make fine wine. This is just such a good mix. So then it's just like people go, but hang on, you've come from a slightly different background and you've been involved, and Craggy's always been this and this, and it's suited and booted, and yeah, for sure. But that's at the end of the day, like, I think that the success that I believe that I had when I was there, and what worked really well for the brand was that nothing changed in a hurry, and what we did was incremental changes. And obviously, what we were just trying to do is convey like a slight style shift, but ultimately, like, just kind of amplify the style of the wines. Nothing about, like, I'm vineyard obsessed, so we didn't have to change the vineyards. Vineyards are amazing. It was just like small incremental changes. And I think at the end of the day, you can kind of probably place a slight, at the risk of downplaying my own role, you can slightly place a bit of a overemphasis on the one person that's there for a period of time. Because I used to reflect on this, going, in 100 years' time, Julian Grounds, they're going to look through the record books and they're going to be like, he was a blip, absolute blip on that radar. And it's like that.
Wait, are you saying that's a good thing or a bad thing? Just confirming.
Yeah, I didn't burn the place down, so it's probably a good thing. But
yeah.
But like, you can probably have maybe you can overemphasize, or other people can overemphasize what you're going to do in the grand scheme of things. But you hope that whatever you do, that you built it to a place that's better, that the person takes over you, and then the brand will survive everything. Like, what's the thing they say? If it's a great brand, it takes, like, what does it take? A generation to kill it. So, and I think Craggy's a great brand.
And Julian, I look at when you, like, as a winemaker, when you are looking, and just say you're successful in that role. One, Craggy Range is one of the most beautiful places on earth. The part of the world it sits in is stunning, but also the vineyards, epic in itself. And I've enjoyed so many lunches in that restaurant there. But I look at it as a chef, and I remember going to an interview when I was opening the Stokehouse in Brisbane, and the bean handlers were saying, do you know what that Stokehouse brand means to us, and how long that's been in the pipeline for? And you sit back and you go, fucking hell.
And that was the question I was going to ask. That weight is significant, right?
It is, but if you look at my tenure at Stokehouse, and I still walk into that building now and I feel my DNA in it. But I was a blip in the radar because I was there for a couple of years. But me as a consumer of nice wine, I could pick your bottle of wine up that you made and I could do that in 50 or 60 years time, and it's still your booze in that bottle. I look at it and I go, when I was a chef there, I was responsible for the food that left the past, and also the the reputation of that restaurant while I'm standing there and cooking. But yours could go on for 150 years. And I think, fucking hell, that is such a lot of responsibility. You know what I mean?
Like, I think also with that brand, like that, the trust that there's been set up for that brand is kind of unique, right? There's
it is. Do you want
to chat about that for a sec? Because I think there's something that a lot of people don't know about Craggy in particular, and I think it actually says a lot about the brand and the family as well. So do you want to launch into what that looks like?
Yeah, so like when Terry Peabody and Mary Peabody were starting the brand, they were fortunate enough to be speaking to a lot of multi-generational brands, and they said, this will not happen in your lifetime. It might happen in your kid's lifetime, but it could happen in your grandkids' lifetime. So they're basically saying that, like, what you're doing will be an enduring success, but it's going to take longer than you think. So the decision was made to basically lock it up in 1,000-year-old trust, so that, like, that kind of that guaranteed the success of the brand. Now,
I just want to reiterate that, just in case, because you seem to gloss over that real fucking quick. But that is 1,000-year-old trust.
That can't be sold.
1,000 years for those hanging on. I just keep saying it. It sounds nice. 1,000. Yeah,
it's funny. Like, I didn't roll over it because I probably said it to so many dinners.
You're just used to saying it. Whereas I think it really needs to be pointed out, that is a significantly long period of time.
Yeah,
So.
it's 1 million years, you know?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like,
Yeah. Wow.
No,
when I first heard that, I went, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
And it's like, I think, I mean, it's funny, like when we were at Craggy, we would do a lot of, we would pull a lot of like research and reference a lot of other brands, but we did look at things like Antinori that have been around since 1450, or, well, you know, like we would look at other brands and just go, this is going to, yeah. So, I mean, like to talk about, like you just mentioned, about the, like, does it hold weight or whatever? Like I don't know how well you guys remember, but there was a American winemaker, late winemaker Doug Weiser, that was he made the first wine. So tragically died in a kite surfing accident.
Yeah.
And he came out from Literai. And he was there not for a huge period of time, because unfortunately, tragically, he was only there since it started to when he passed away in 2003. But he was still referenced, like constantly referenced for like being the guy that like made wines that like really stood out, and like people would get emotional talking about it. I think he was great friends. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be really good mates with like Blair Walter from Felton Road and Warren Gibson from La Colina, and like they would think about, they'd think about it and just go, fuck, it's just so sad he's not here. And so it's like I used to think about that. I'm like, mate, if you absolutely nail this, it's not about the 5 years and people will reference Julian, but it's like you can make wines that people go, oh, there was a period of time when Craggy made these wines and they're a particular style and that was beautiful, and then they handed that on and they keep going. Yeah.
I think,
or even if you just did the brand justice, which clearly you did. You know what I mean? Like, and
the season,
if anybody hasn't, who's listening or watching this hasn't been to Craggy, just Google it, because it starts from when you drive down the driveway, isn't it? It's it's a pretty spectacular place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the challenge, I think, when you go into a business like that that's got history, it's got momentum, and you're like, well, what do I do? Like the thought process from your point of view is, like you said, incremental change has to be subtle. It has to be slow. There's certain sort of caveats almost put on that, because if you go in there and just chuck a handbrake turn and start going, right, we're going to do pet nat, it's like, what are we talking about? I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been very, very funny. But
I'm just going to put it out there. I did bottle a 3-year-old Oenology Chardonnay. There is no bottling somewhere.
Mate, we need to get that wine. We need to find that wine. That's hilarious. Jesus. But I think that's the thing, is that I find it interesting that, like you said, like when you started, there's a lot of negative there. It's just like, I think it says more about the people that are talking like that as well. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it was negative. I think it's just people were like, I remember there was one particular article, and it was like, I think the title was like, punk rock, something loving, and it's like this, and it's like that. I'm classically trained, like, and I am classically trained. My first job ever was full-time job was working at Leeuwin Estate when I was 20 years old. Like you can't
get more classic than that.
You can't get more classic than that. It's like I have paid my dues with the classics, and it's helped me to develop my style. And I was actually thinking about this when we're talking about talking points. Like, I can't think of a single winemaker. Like, okay, so this is a little anecdote. Like, I was, as part of the Len Evans tutorial trip, when I was fortunate enough to become Dux and go on that trip.
Yeah, I wasn't Dux in my year, unfortunately. So.
I've been accused of bringing up that talking point a few times, but
mate, go for it. I would be. You wouldn't get me to shut up about it.
I would be Dux.
Maddie,
for eating roast chicken, maybe.
Matty Brook, Dux, hello, Matt. Lovely. I actually should reach out to Matt. He nailed it.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
and,
sorry.
No, it's all right. And so we had a friend who worked for me in Yarra. We ended up up in Yarra, and basically, fortunately, ended up having dinner at Oenology's house with Pierre Oenology. And as you do, yeah. And it was an amazing. Emmanuel was there, and it was a beautiful night. And it was like it was bizarre because it was so like a tasting rather than a dinner. But I just was like kind of blown away by, Pierre's a scientist and he's an intellect, and it's like, of course he is. And of course these wines are so revered, but it's like, I don't think anyone in the world who has made wines that are revered isn't of a high level of intelligence and doesn't have like a desire to understand what they're doing and make it better. And so I think it's like you can cheapen it, like the package can cheapen it.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, but ultimately, like you've got to a position where you are from you hope from hard work, and that hard work has resulted in a level of knowledge, or a high level of knowledge. You hope, and I'm sure it's exactly the same in hospitality. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there is that I what you were saying is that knowledge, and that's any subject matter on the planet is exactly the same, and it does take time to acquire that knowledge. And then, once you get to a certain point, right, you start shaping it, and with wine, obviously, you've got the ability to make decisions during the process that can have a very distinct effect on the wines. But also, you've got a library of those wines to make sure that you're keeping it sort of in check, I suppose. It's not like there is I mean, Craggy probably for me does have a kind of a house style that has changed over time. It's not that locked and loaded kind of style. I think for me, and this isn't speaking out of school, I think there was a period in time there where there was way too much new oak used, and these vineyards that are providing exceptional fruit, it's like just pull back a second and have a look. And then that idea of restraint, and we've talked about this before, is that the hardest thing you can do, I think, in hospitality in general, is like take one thing off the plate. That's right. Get the best possible thing you can and do as little as possible to fuck it up.
Yeah.
And I think that sworn more tonight than I have in the entire podcast for some reason. I'm going to blame the Chardonnay, or the fact that Corey's staring at the back of my head.
That point of restraint, because I listened to that the other night, that landed so like that's poignant. Like that restraint in winemaking, because it is, especially when you're young, like the desire is to just go, look at me, like, fucking whole bunch oak, like let's
for me, what's everyone talking about? Let's throw everything at that.
And for me, as a horrendously painful Chardonnay drinker, like I love it to death. I reckon the sign of a great Chardonnay is when you want one more glass out of a bottle, because I've had so much Chardonnay from some of the most amazing vineyards in the world. And when that last glass is poured, there's a bit of a thank fuck for that.
Yeah.
Like it was, as each glass goes down, it's getting bigger and bigger until the end. And you're like,
God, get out of But you're right. I think, and good Chardonnay, a Magnum is the right size bottle for one person.
If it's a good Chardonnay,
absolutely.
I used to think about that a lot. Like honestly, and with the Sauvignon Blanc, like the thing with Craggy is we're making a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, and that was like a style that was super successful for us, particularly in the US, but also in Australia, and it was the core of what we did. But I used to tell people, I was like, the number one marker of success of this wine is that someone goes, right, next glass, let's go. That's it is. Yeah.
I think that's true. I think that's true for most wine as well. If I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's good, I'm good, thank you. Like if I was like, I might find wines interesting.
Yep.
But do I want to neck this bottle and actually not share it with anyone?
Yeah.
Different conversation altogether.
Or you do anything for one more glass.
Yeah. Or you're on your phone ringing the distributor going, I need all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like sherry. I mean, like I can't tell you how often, like you have a bottle of sherry and you're like, Jesus Christ, like there's a freaking hole in this glass.
Yeah,
how do they
exactly. Why are they only in 375 ml bottles?
Until you wake up in the morning and you go, fucking hell, why is my head hurting so much?
Yeah, I've had 12 half bottles of yeah, exactly right, and loving every second of it. So okay, so let's go back a step. You said so you started your first full-time job was at Leeuwin, but you were working before that, right?
Yeah, so I basically, I'm from Albany, which is on the south coast of Western Australia, and I started working and studying at the same time straight out of high school. So I was actually 17 when I walked into uni, but turned 18 that year, and then studied and worked in vineyards the whole time. And then my first full-time gig was at Leeuwin, but I was fortunate because I graduated. I did quite well at uni and graduated Dux over there at that uni, and got the
just a casual. Sorry, I'll just pick up that other little Dux reference off the floor. I think you dropped that as well. So
quack. But
I don't even know how to spell Dux.
I'm going to start counting. That's two. We might have a Dux counter, Corey. We might need to put some. Yeah, exactly right.
this is going to be amazing. My wife watched this and she's going, you cannot change, can you? Like, you just
Shamelessly self-promote.
Yeah,
No, that's good.
but,
Yeah, sorry, mate.
yeah.
I just took some value out
No,
of that.
no,
But yeah,
you're
you,
good. Yeah,
you,
so I did a little bit more study and worked in the McHenry, and
Yep.
then after a while, so my first ever job was at a little winery in Albany called Wignall's, which made Pinot. I don't know if you guys have ever heard. It's tiny. So I kind of
definitely
got
haven't.
bitten by the Pinot bug. So I actually ended up moving over to the States and living in Oregon.
Yep.
And making wine over for a beautiful producer over called the Ponzi. And Leeuwin Ponzi became like my kind of first real mentor, and then ultimately met my wife, who's from over there as well. And then we kind of headed back to the Yarra Valley,
Yep.
and I ended up at Giant Steps eventually. So yeah, but it was, look, Oregon. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but it's a pretty special place.
Oh, it's
yeah,
amazing.
It's a beautiful part of the world. There's no doubt about
yeah,
that.
yeah. And food, music, overhopped, fucking flavour some beers, but
My worst fucking nightmare. I
yeah.
don't want anything to do with that. That part of it sounds like hell, to be honest.
I am cut from the same cloth. Like, yeah, if you can't see through it, I don't trust it.
No, exactly, 100%. I was with some guys a couple of nights ago, and I said we're at a pub, and I sort of sat down. And I was like, "All right, who wants a beer?" And I was looking at this thing. I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" It's like, I don't even know. Is that even beer? I was like, that
Yeah.
looks like
Pop
thick.
Fury.
No, it looked like thick. I said it looked like thick pineapple juice. So it was like,
Jesus
it's just like, oh my god.
My
But
worst nightmare.
it is literally, for me, if someone says, "Do you want a beer?" It's like, yes, but what is it?
Yeah, I don't
See
don't
through
worry.
it. Fucking great. I love it.
I mean, Kirkwood and I, like Alex, yeah, we're
He's a 4X Gold fan. Like,
exactly. I was just about to say we were at a
So-
shitty pub in Sydney at 10:30 at night and drinking out of plastic glasses, and it was
Perfect.
the shittest beer.
Yeah.
I was like, this is all right. I mean,
This
the
is all
plastic
right.
glasses,
Exactly.
give or take.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, yeah, beer is for refreshment. But anyway,
Yeah,
we don't say that when we're talking to beer people. But I would. I say it to everyone. But
Yeah.
just listing some of those places, mate, you've kind of landed in some okay spots to grow,
Christ,
to
watch TV.
to make
Yeah.
wine and also live. Like, they're really cool. Like Hawke's Bay, even, like,
Yeah.
obviously not exactly the most bustling metropolis, but
Yeah.
you're not far away
Few
from a
mongrel
couple
mob
of
kicking around there as well.
Not so much in the south, but there's some, like, Hastings is cool. I think.
Cake kidnappers kicking around up there.
Yeah.
To take your clubs up.
Yeah, you got to take your clubs.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's New Zealand. It's not, hard to get anywhere. So it's just like the place is encompassing its beauty. But yeah, it's funny. Look, I think I kind of took this philosophy, and my wife was very much the same. She was from Alaska, and I was from Albany, so we're from crazy different places.
Jesus Christ!
And yeah,
Hang on, there couldn't be too many places that are
No,
further
no,
apart from each other on the
I
planet.
guarantee you've never heard that.
No one has
No.
ever said, "Oh, and my wife's from Alaska, and I'm from Albany."
I think we googled it, and it was like you'd battle to get further apart than that. But
Oh, actually, though, because
Imagine getting
Yeah.
the two families together. That would have been.
where do you
fucking awesome
meet?
as well.
Where's the middle?
Yeah.
yeah,
Africa.
Hawaii, yeah.
Is it-
Which is where
Madagascar.
I'd rather go anyway than
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
Just
But
happen.
yeah,
We
I
have
think-
to meet in the Maldives. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think I adopted this philosophy of like, I will, as long as I feel like it's okay to leave, I'll take the opportunity, and we'll throw caution in the wind over tenure. And look, that's probably hurt me in some regards, but also, like, I suppose it's that, and we've got two young kids, so it's never easy to move around. But
Yeah. Gets
there's
harder
also,
as they get older as well, right?
as I get older, yeah. But the Craggy thing was really interesting because they approached me and to apply for it. They didn't approach me for the role, but it's like you go through that whole thing of like, is this in this one beautiful life? Do you want to die winery? And I've had a really incredibly supportive wife, and like I miss not living in New Zealand now. Like, I miss not living in Oregon, and that's the trade off when you do leave these positions. But there's also, like, that's going to be a core part of my narrative and our
The
family's
story.
narrative.
Yeah.
Because we did that. Yeah.
Chapter 2 in the story. in the novel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always go back, right?
Yeah.
As a visitor, and take your kids there and
Yeah.
relive them through
Yeah.
everything you've done. I
Yeah.
think that's cool.
This is where you break your knee.
Yeah.
This is where,
Yeah.
This is where I got ducks to
Yeah.
school.
This is
The
where
second
we got that
time.
accent. This is
Yeah,
where-
exactly right. Yeah,
This is where
sorry.
you got the
Yeah.
accent that we can't shake.
Oh, you can't. They got it, have they?
Yeah, oh, they're getting better, but yeah, I should say it's getting better.
Yeah, the Mornington is beating that out of them every single day. So
yeah,
yeah, I don't think you probably wouldn't last too long in New Zealand if you said it was a bad thing. That's for sure. But they're
no,
probably they're just talking about. Are they talking about chili bins and jandals and things like that? Or sorry, friends.
You basically walk around with a punching bag. You know, as soon as you open your mouth, they're like, "Here we go." What dumb thing is going to come out of your mouth?
And that's the thing. It's a two-way street, right? We do exactly the same thing, and then we complain about it when they give it back. It's like, hang on a second.
So we're watching rugby, and all the Aussies got the tail between their legs.
Oh, and I reckon I've 100 times have said that I would much prefer to be Kiwi for that reason, just so that I know that my team's going to probably win,
smash you,
as opposed to sobbing on the couch. Everything.
I do remember you sending me a fucking fanboy message about a certain photo I have with Dan Carter.
Yeah, mate, that is a ridiculous. There's something about him as well. I don't know why. There's something about. He's just an incredible human. Anyway, and just watching some of the stuff about him and what he did, and they went through some he was in some dark places and came back, and I just love those kind of stories. And that story.
I mean, in New Zealand is funny. It's like the All Black could be, he's I mean, like Richie McCaw's the perfect example, and now he's flying
helicopters.
He's frost fighting helicopters in Marlborough.
Mate, and did you spoken to Anna about this?
No, but I don't know.
So the guys at Te Whareira, they one morning, Jace goes out, the frost alarms go off, he goes out, helicopters are called in, and then Anna gets a message, I think it was like 5 o'clock maybe, she gets a message going, get the girls and get out here now. And so walks out, and there's Sir Richie getting out of the chopper, coming over to meet the girls, and Anna, which is, she was pretty much willing to get in the helicopter, I think, that day. I think Jason might have given her the pass as well. But he was just literally flying helicopters. He was doing it at that point in time, I think, to get his night hours up or something like that. But I think he's still doing a bit of it. That's the thing. It's like
he is. I think he's got multiple. Yeah.
So right. People don't know the helicopters hover over the vineyards to blow all the frost away, right?
Blow the air.
And it's incredibly common in New Zealand too. Like because
sounds like a cheap process.
Well, it's not as
cheap as losing the grapes, I guess.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, what do you want? You want frozen ground and vines that won't recover for 2 or 3 years, or probably long-term damage, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's depending on the severity, but it's also, you got to remember in New Zealand, like helicopters are used by farmers everywhere because people have farms.
In Queensland, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing is that's summer, and then in winter you do heli skiing, so it's like they're always going.
Gotcha.
They're always going.
And Darwin's the same, right? You go to General Aviation in Darwin Airport, and there's 1,000 helicopters.
Gotcha.
They're mustering, or they're fishing, or everything.
Medevac, shooting, or just doing their thing.
Yeah.
It's a big country, I guess. Then. Yeah,
and getting around in some of those places, in some parts of New Zealand, particularly the South Island, it's hairy as well. So it's like you're not driving, and in certain weather, it's like you don't want to be doing anything. It's just like just lock it in. So mate, moving back to Australia, how's it been? Is there any kind of major cultural shocks or?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not without its challenges, and I think that it's probably one of these ones that like you. There's a funny thing about being an expat in a country, in that you, even though it's like New Zealand is effectively, we're so close in so many regards, but the ability to go over and be an expat and not know anyone and start it with this without anything and have to just like throw yourself in and have this amazing role. It's like, it's quite liberating. It's actually really liberating. It's like
it's like I suppose I get it. It's freeing because like the shackles are off.
Yeah. And so you throw yourself in, and then you come home, and it's like, you know a lot more. And for some, that's comforting in some ways, because there's a level of like, I know that person. But then it's also like you have to begin to start to engineer your life into people's lives that you've known for a long time who have got on with things, and you haven't been a part of that journey, and they're on that journey. And so I think there's also that kind of shifting away from, like, from what you guys said is an icon comes. It's not a soft landing off that,
Yeah.
and I think being, and I think this is really important, and I think you guys talked about a lot, and I've talked about a lot of friends, like that comes with mental health. Kind of, for me, it's been really tough, like in
Yep.
certain ways, because nothing to do with like where I've landed. I'm really fortunate I've landed at Estonia, but that transition has been, I wouldn't have even imagined how tough it's going to be. And I think
Yeah.
I take that as a badge of honor, because I feel like I know that I cared. It meant that I cared a lot, and it meant that I immersed it, and it meant that I took it really seriously, and it wasn't just like a ticket to somewhere. It's like I actually fell in love with this place and this brand and this family that I work for.
Yeah.
And then I've come back and I've got to redo all that again. But you're at a different stage of your life, and there's more vulnerabilities and stuff. So
You'll
I
probably be
think
like that
it's
for the rest of your life with that brand as well. What
Potentially,
brand
yeah.
you throw yourself into,
Yeah, and so like I say that because I think the natural expectation is that your people say, "Oh, it's been amazing. I'm so stoked to be home," and everything like that. And there's
Yeah.
part of me that is 100% like, I just love this country, and I'm so glad to be back, and so glad to be back in Victoria. But there's the other part of it is like, it comes, you lose this ping, and you got to process that, and
Absolutely. There's a
yeah,
loss, and there's grief that comes with that. Even if you've made the decision and everything else, there's
yeah,
still going to be stuff to process. And I think, man, it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I think a lot of people just don't do that as well. And then we
yeah,
end up not processing those kind of things. And then that creates a whole other series of challenges that, of not dealing with whatever that is. And I think, like you said, you sort of expect it, not expect it, but from a soft landing point of view, and then you get here and it's like, oh, it should be all great. And then you start doubting yourself. You're like, why isn't it awesome? Why aren't I loving it as much as I was there, or whatever it is? And it's like, it's a different trajectory when you're coming up to something and leaving, as opposed to
yeah,
coming into something as well. So you sort of, it's one's coming up, one's going down, and not better or worse, but they're
It's
very,
even
very
harder when you've
different.
been in it for like over an extended period of time.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
harder.
yeah.
Yeah.
Way harder.
Yeah.
But I think it must be the same as a chef who's, they've left something they've built up, and they feel like it's in a really good space, and then they go, and then it's like you get. So I think it's just a stage of the process. The great thing is, coming back to Australia is like, you I just feel such a love for the wine community here. I really do. I love the New Zealand wine community, but I do feel the love of the trade and the wine community in Australia is really something special. Like, my first trade trip into Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne, like, I can't even tell you. It's just like, it's not going out and meeting trade, it's going out and showing friends,
Yeah.
and that is just it's the best feeling. And the fact that, like,
Absolutely.
I dropped you a message, and I love that. And
Yeah.
the other thing about it is like, the growth in me, I feel like, is a lot of that ego started to shed away, and now it's
Yeah.
just about, like, how can I share this beautiful wines that I'm going to make with this great label, and this label that has this great history, with all
Absolutely.
you guys that, like, like, for example, I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning, but I was emailing with Gabby Poi today at Prince Wine Store. I haven't seen her for years, and I was
Yeah.
like, I just can't wait to get together and drink a wine, because we've known each other for such a long period of time,
Yeah.
and that is really special. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I think it's funny you say that. I tasted today. I tasted with a few brands today, and out of, so how many, it was 4 people I saw today. 3 of the people, I was greeted with a hug, as
Yeah.
opposed to a
Cool.
handshake and I
yeah,
just fucking love that.
Yeah. It's so
I
cool.
love it.
yeah,
I absolutely love it. Shout out to Kep, from Savataire, who started that train this morning. And there's something really cool about that I think you're right, that there is a community here. And I think that also can have its challenges. There's sometimes
yeah,
that works out in certain ways. Obviously, there's always politics in certain things. I mean, we're not going to get into wine shows right now because we don't have enough time. But there's certain pockets, and there's people that you meet that are just generally amazing human beings.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I certainly feel very fortunate to be able to call, like, someone like yourself a friend, where it's like, hey mate, you want to come on, and you say yes without a fucking hesitation. I love that.
yeah,
And I know that we're going to have an interesting chat. And I think that our industry as a whole, or across the board, chefs, chefs get a bit of a bad run because, you mentioned a word there that, I think happens particularly in wine at a certain age as well. For me, I passed that a long time ago, but hopefully, mind you, I did get told recently that I do have an ego, but it's a good ego. And I was like, I don't really understand what that means, but thank you, I think.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But that idea of, and again, I talk about this all the time, and it's been drummed into me by certain people. It's not about me, and trying to work out, okay, then what is it about, and how do I potentially help that?
But you're not writing a wine list for you.
No, not at all. I mean,
you're writing the wine list for the venue.
Absolutely.
Which hopefully is for the people.
Yeah,
right?
and you're not making wine for you necessarily. It is for there is again, and there was a comment on one of the pods recently where someone said something about, the commercial, it's not always about commercial, we're losing the art and that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, but you can tread that line, it's not about, okay, Julian, you got to come back here and make 1 million liters of $7 a liter Sauvignon Blanc. It's like, you probably wouldn't do that. But there is, you've got it, like you said, with Craggy is a great example, Taimuna Sauv Blanc probably pays for you get the oak to then do the fun stuff with Le Sol and Le Beau Caillou and those kind of fun, like, small batch, interesting wines that have got, they're fucking expensive to make.
And that's where you're flexing as a winemaker a bit. You like stand behind it, you puff your chest
Absolutely.
down, this is my baby. But
Yeah.
you're creating a wine like that, like the Craggy Sauvignon Blanc, that you'd be hard pressed. You pour it in 90% of the average punter's glass, and they're going to go, "Holy fuck, how good is that?"
Yeah.
And I think that.
I mean, it's your biggest wine is that I won't use that word because it sounds a little bit touch point, but it's like that is, you've got to remember, like, that's your reach is that that core wine, and so. Like, there's no point that being like, oh, look at this, but like, wait till you try the next thing. It's like that is your ability. I mean,
you can't sell wine like that either.
And it's like you got to know your house champagne. But I mean, like, I think like you opened a really interesting subject there, which is like it's the equivalent of food costs, isn't it? It's like when you start talking about like know what you're making and know who you're making it for, and like the brand, having a great brand allows you a bit more flexibility with regards to like pushing the boat out. But you don't get that great brand by not doing the same thing right for a long period of time. Like, consistency is king with great brands. If I can name with all the great wine brands in the world, they have been banging out a great wine, one core wine, like, for so long. Like,
and you create trust with the punter, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not you've had Stonier Pinot or you've only ever had the Chardonnay, if you've had the Chardonnay and you love it, then you got this trust that if I'm paying $30 or $60, depending on what entry level or what tier wine you're drinking, there's a trust behind that brand. And I think that's built with just consistently building your base wines all the way up for a long period of time, and then they don't mind throwing bucks at the big stuff.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, like, you look at even at the pointy end of champagne. I mean, like, Krug's got tiers within Krug, but like anyone who gets the chance to try Krug would just be like, I know it's going to be good and it's amazing, and then like people can value up from there if they want to. But like that, it's actually like they have to nail that. It's funny. I heard someone was talking with today was telling me a story about they recently had the newest vintage of the Giaconda Chardonnay that's had a lot of hype and got the high scores. And they were like, it's one of the best Australian Chardonnays, if not the best Australian Chardonnay I've ever tried. And I was thinking, from that producer, that's actually like just consistency. Like that's their version of consistency.
Absolutely.
Always been. So that's and that's, again, it's just like, that's a great brand because people have been saying that about Giaconda forever.
I was going to say that's been happening for 20 years. That's the thing. I mean, like talking to Kep from Sabatier today, and same thing with his Chardonnay. It's we were talking about the their second wine, the younger vine sort of stuff, and he's like, I can't make it anymore because it's 15 years old. It's not young vine anymore. So you can't get away charging $30 for it or whatever it is. It's like that wine is actually. It's better than that, I suppose. But great problem to have when you're actually, your young vines are now 15 years old and producing at a similar level to those older vines. But I'm curious.
And so for us, like, for me with Stonier, it's like, you know, I want people to, you know, I got to take them they have to dig into the history and know about the place. And there's
Yep.
been some ups and downs with regards to more recent kind of ownership stuff, but the
Yep.
property hasn't changed. But it's, to your point, it's like there's going to be the reserves and the single vineyards, and that's what I want to take. And they'll be at the pointy end, hopefully. But if people's accessibility that they come across the Stonier Chardonnay and the Stonier Pinot more, I just need that to taste great every year and remind people of that brand is like, it's going to be great Pinot and it's going to be great Chardonnay, and there's a level of confidence that wherever I find it, at whatever restaurant, it's going to deliver.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we've with the 2 wine stores that I've got, it's I went to buy, because I knew we were speaking to you tonight, we were going to buy some. I said to Damien, I said, I'm going to get some Stonier. I want some reserve Chardonnay and Pinot, and both wine stores have sold out. And it's like, it's consistently moving off the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
I'm like, well, isn't that a sign of a good wine? Because there's a bunch of wine there that's probably still been there from when you were there.
So now I bought the wrong wine. I'm gonna fucking here we go.
No. But I'm saying there's some wine. There's great wine that doesn't move off the shelf, as you know, because people don't really know it, or it might be
it's something that might need to be sold.
But yeah, I know, it might be $100, and then it takes a lot of people to go, oh, fuck, I haven't really had that before. But if you sell, they're not. It's not a $10 wine.
No.
But people are like, whether or not it's $40 or whether or not it's $80, they're trusting that and they're grabbing it to drink it. And isn't that a sign of a great wine when we can't keep it on the shelf?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and great distribution too. And and that's also like such a underestimated part of wine sales. If you can't be direct, like your distributor relationships are just so important.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. And a lot of people, let's talk about that really briefly and maybe try and explain it for those people that don't understand the distribution relationship in Australia from a lot of wineries. Is basically Julian makes a wine, he then wants to get it to market. He can't go to every single restaurant in his state, let alone the whole country. So he then basically employs people at another company or entrusts with them his brand and his wines to then go to market. So that's when someone from a certain brand company would ring me or any SOM or anyone making decisions in a wine store or in a restaurant, and they'd make an appointment, they'd come in, show the wines, tell you the story, and then you decide if you want to buy them or not. Now that costs something, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand this necessarily, that there is a fair whack of every single bottle of wine that you buy that has that margin in it for the distributor.
And the hard bit is that person selling could possibly have 10 other Pinots or Chardonnays or Champagne.
Yeah.
That's what I find. Fuck, like that must be difficult.
Which one
you've done.
I've done it as well.
All of it, you know, and that must be hard.
Yeah, and I think that, and as Julian said, like if you've like a brand like Stonier, for example, where there's a consistency there, it's been around for long enough that people should know the brand, trust the brand. But then, like, I'm looking at these 2 wines here. So we've got a 21 Chardonnay, which you had absolutely nothing to do with, and then there's I can taste that. Anyway. And then there's a 23 Pinot, which you did finish. Now we've just tasted these wines tonight as we're talking to you for research purposes, of course, and no enjoyment whatsoever. But we're tasting these wines, and I can see there's a difference between those 2 wines in terms of, for me, it's about polish, restraint, elegance. There's potentially a slight vintage variation there as well, but there's a quality in them. But when Julian comes into the trade and he comes into a restaurant that I'm in, whatever, and he tells me the story from him, it's very different again than what it is if I'm just hearing it from the rep.
Yeah.
But there's agencies out there that have got 60, 70, 80, 100 producers in their bag, in their portfolio. Are they taking a principal out every single week? And I know someone in the last 2 weeks in Brisbane, the Gold Coast, who's had a principal with them. So someone from the winery, either a winemaker or a brand manager or whatever it may be, 5 days out of the last 10.
Yeah.
And it's like,
which means they can't do their job.
They can't do their job.
Yeah.
They literally can't do their job. So this person is then going home at night after driving all day, taking the bags around, meeting people, everything else, keeping the principal happy, maybe a lunch here, a dinner there, whatever it may be, and then goes home and has to answer all the emails, process the orders, do it. I'm not saying it's fucking hard work, but it's there's something in it. Like it's not beer and Skittles. People aren't just sitting at home smoking a cigar, having a margarita, and going, "Hey, you want to buy some Stonier?" That's just not how it works.
No, and they've got budgets they have to hit, you know, and
Totally.
so
And it's
yeah,
hard. Like if you speak to anyone now, it's harder than it's ever been.
And there's always there's always the vineyard next door that's just looking to wipe you out as well. Wants to sell more, wants to get that pouring spot on the wine list, off your glasses or a trip or
deeper
something.
pocket, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So all I would say to that is, like, from my perspective, like, so yeah, you know, from a model perspective, like, direct is always is preferred by so many wineries, but there's not many like, you know, Joseph Phelps in Napa Valley that had like 10,000 club members and with $1,000 bottles of wine sold at 100% direct. Like, there's not, they're unicorns, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they don't exist.
No, and
then they get sold for about, you know, 40 times multiple, because that's like a, you know, something that's like, well, we can scale that and make a ridiculous amount of money. But, you know, like, what I have to do is, like, first and foremost, like, and this is probably something, like, in this tough environment, so much is now going to be on, like, how do we generate sales, and how do I get my brand positions right? But you just cannot emphasize enough that, like, that can't be at the expense of, like, making quality wine. Like, like, you have to just, like,
you would think that's kind of counterintuitive, right? But I think that's the thing.
So, like,
it's that fine line. What do you do to go the other way and go, we have to make great wine? Well, that's expensive, so we have to charge more. And it's like, holy shit. So where do you make those decisions?
So you got to be smart, like, you know, and we're having those discussions at the moment, you know, like, we haven't had great yield, so it's like we've had a bit of pressure on that kind of thing, so we've got to be smart. But then the next thing is, like, just making your distributor's life easier with, like, giving them the information they need to convey a believable and concise and story that connects with the people. And then some of that is just, like, you know, I've just found, and I know, like, the guys in Queensland who are with our distributor, I have, like, good personal relationships with. It's just amazing about, like, the ability to connect with not just the guys that's going at the end, but the guys, the distributors. It can't hurt, because they know that in that book, to your point, like you guys are saying, like, if it's a deep book and you're a good human and you've given them the tools to make their job a little bit easier, it's like, you know, maybe that puts you a little bit ahead of the other person. I don't know. It sucks that it's so competitive. I know, but
Is there anything more refreshing when a rep comes in and says, you know, look, I can see you've probably got a gap in your wine list for a Mornington Pinot. Can I put this in the glass and show you? And, you know, at least they've gone to the effort to have a bit of a look.
Yeah, I had that experience once where someone was like, "Oh, you've got a couple of gaps on your wine list. I'd like to discuss them with you." I was like, "Fuck off. We're never speaking ever again." And again, it's about approach. This guy just didn't know. Like, seriously, I've never met this person before. His first interaction was to ring me in the middle of service in lunch and basically shit can the wine list. And it's like, thanks, not interested, thank you. And
they join an illustrious crowd, Pete.
Well, it's not a big book.
Well,
it's not a big book, but it's solid.
It's what's interesting, because my experience in Craggy was we were such an export. So we exported 90% of our wine. So, and a lot of that was to the US. And you know, there it's so much it's like done for the restaurant groups, which obviously post COVID have been dominating over there.
Yeah.
And so the wines come up for rotation, and they come up and you put your thing in, and then you're actually, like, you're away. You're ranged across 15 restaurants that have 300 seats, and you don't move for 6 months, and you can just, like, you can take that to the bank. So it's really different.
But then I think the other thing is that you know, that also can end real quick as well, when it's like, okay, we're going to change, we're done, and it's like you go from you know,
big holder for
100 cases a month or a week or whatever it may be to fucking naught real quick.
Correct. And Costco is like Costco is a drug, but if once you're off that drug, it's like, you know, you can be in free fall.
It's really interesting, and I'm in that process at the moment of looking about sort of by the glass pours 6 months in advance and locking them in, things which we used to do, but everyone sort of moved away from that for a little bit more, being a little bit more maybe dynamic potentially, or just leaving something on for a long period of time. But for me, you know, I've got to look at things and go, well, we've got to change things up in certain ways because we can make more money over here, or we've got to look at that, or that's we're not really filling that gap, or we're getting asked for this, or whatever it may be. So it's not as simple as going, oh, we tasted the XYZ Sauv Blanc, it was delicious, we'll put it on. There's so many other things to think about. And as I said before, it's really hard for reps at the moment because there's a lot of businesses out there that are struggling, or wine businesses in particular, that the little guys that are there's sort of this weird kind of tier, I suppose, where there's the little guys that maybe have one or two brands that kind of are sort of doing all right. And then you've got the bigger guys that have got maybe 100 brands or more, and they're doing okay because they've just got those big brands that will just consistently sell.
Yeah.
But this gap in the middle is huge. There's so many producers, so many distributors in that gap that are competing with each other for those few spots on a wine list that may not be contracted for the big guys. Like you said, those big restaurant groups. Not so much here, but certainly in other parts of the world where that's the thing. It's like, if you're not in that contract, you're not getting the wine in.
Yeah.
You know, like LCBO is a great one in Canada, in Ontario, everything's through the government. And it's like, if you don't get approved, you cannot sell wine in that entire province.
Jesus Christ.
And it's like, it's a big fucking province
So
as well.
There's
lots of
what
people
would cause somebody not to get approved?
Oh, because they only open it. Like, can I just tell you my LCBO story?
Please, I'm looking forward to
it. I've never heard of that term before.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. But I hadn't dealt with what's the one in Vancouver called? It's
BC.
Something like LCVB or something like that.
Yeah.
But
They're
I
friendly
walked into this. So they're government controlled liquor stores that have to have a huge percentage of Canadian wine, but then they get weird. They get weird like allocations of thing. I walked into one of these stores and Jamay was floor stacked.
Okay, so hang on, just to explain that. So Jamay is a Rhone producer.
I was about to go.
Yeah, what the fuck's Jamay? Jamay is a producer from the Rhone Valley, Northern Rhone mainly, Cote Rôtie. Their Cote Rôtie is, fuck, everyone wants it. It's really hard to get.
The best Shiraz in the world, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Let's roll with that. There's probably a few Aussies that'd argue with that, but I'm not gonna. I love everyone equally.
Yeah.
But it is.
I said on this day.
It's a really, really hard to get wine. Basically, is probably the best way to put that caveat there. And floor stacks, so there's 6 boxes sitting on there ready to go. It's like fuck. That's the entire allocation for Queensland and New South Wales together, probably. So.
It's hilarious. But no, I mean all of that. What he's saying is, it's real, and it's going to be it's going to be a bit of a difficult period for the foreseeable future with all of that, and everyone, we all believe that we're growing great wine, and that hasn't changed. And the other thing that's interesting is in Australia is like so many people are coming up to this period where they have vine age. For Stonier, we've got 40 years. I mean, that's like you're hitting you're starting to hit like really cool narratives with your wine, and a lot of Margaret River is hitting 40 years, and the Yarra Valley is hitting 50 years and stuff. And so everyone's like, this is when it's like, chests are out, and we're like far out. Like we know what we're doing now. This is like rah 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 Australia, and it's like you're like, oh, now we're all like,
we got all this great juice and we can't fucking sell it. So
it's true. It's probably the best. Australia's never been making better wine consistently across so many different regions.
Agreed, 100%. I'll take Chardonnay. Australian Chardonnay right now, and I reckon I've said this probably for the last 10 years though, it's probably the best spot it's ever been, and it keeps getting better every year. And I think there's a number of sort of reasons for that. For me, it's vine age is one, obviously, but it's also just skill. Learning restraint, learning balance, understanding sites, all of those things. Like guys like Oak Ridge, I suppose, probably really set certain things in motions in that sort of early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, where they started making wines in a style that everyone was like, wait, what? We can do that too? It was like, oh shit. It was like this eye-opening moment where everyone sort of realized that we don't have to do it a certain way. And that's okay. And
then Virginia, who had also worked at Oak Ridge, I think those two are really key brands.
Absolutely. And I think that there's I think it's probably happened more with Chardonnay than anything else.
But as a mug punter, no Som, I enjoy drinking wine, but I'm a novice, right? But I look at, and I've been very fortunate in my time in hospitality to be able to drink some fantastic wine. But it's we're in a very, very cool stage in Australia, I think, where somebody like me, I look at value for money, and you look at all these amazing European Burgundies, and I always revert back to the value for money, the great Australian wine, Chardonnay and Pinot, they're what I love to drink. You're hard pressed to find better value for money than with Australian wine, right?
Yeah.
Because I always go, you can buy a $300 bottle of Burgundy, which is clearly a magnificent wine.
And that's not necessarily the truth, but
yeah, and it's not. You're right, and that might not buy you a top tier Burgundy,
No,
but
they see.
I sit back and I go, well, I can have 4 bottles of great Australian Chardonnay, and unless I'm sitting down with somebody like you two guys who can explain it to me and I can sit back and understand it. As a punter, I just want to put it in my glass and go
and neck it.
Well, I paid $100 for that, and fucking hell, that's great value.
Yeah,
you know.
And I think that value for money thing, Julian, you probably see this being out in the trade again. I think that's probably the most critical thing at the moment.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean cheap.
No, it doesn't.
Exactly.
That value can be $5 or $500 or $5,000. It's not.
Yeah.
But it is something where it is very much at the forefront of everyone's mind, and it's not just about the wine; it's about the experience as well. So, what does that look like? You know, is in the wine bar that we've got, what are we serving? Are we just serving the wine? Do they get something with it? Is there a couple of peanuts? Is there an olive? Is there something that just elevates that experience? It's going to make them want to come back, because we all know there's pressure everywhere with money at the moment. It's fucking diabolical with certain things. You know, I just keep getting back to the thing for me that, and I've probably already mentioned it 10 times on here. Fucking potato chips are not $8 a packet. They're just not. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it.
70 grams.
Either way, the potato chip is the one thing that for me is really pissing me off at the moment. That and fuel, but anyway, that's because I'm driving a lot.
And olive oil. What the?
Oh yes,
fuck. Yes.
Olive oil. What happened?
My favorite. I've got a.
How did that happen?
Exactly.
I've got a great. I always have this one particular olive oil in my cupboard at home. It's an Italian unfiltered. It's literally like blended grass. It's delicious, but
it sounds fucking horrible to me.
It sounds amazing.
You've got to be careful what you're tipping it on, right? Because it's fucking
good
brutal,
advice for anything liquid. Yeah,
but it's for a 5 litre tin. It's $200 now.
No,
and I remember. God, going back 15 years ago, it was like $60 for 5 litres.
Why?
I just don't understand.
Yeah.
I really don't understand.
But then what happens with that? And this is happening in so many things now. It's like the bigger one is like dishwasher balls, washing powder. It's like, fuck, good. If any dickhead buys it at full price, that's on you. Like, it's just, I'm just going to wait.
Get them to fucking wash up.
I'm just going to wait, and I'm going to buy 6 of them when they're half price. Yeah. That's just the way it's going to work. So it's like, just put it at that price all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I just can't
really excited
on that.
That's a scab we just picked. I
don't know why that's so. It just shits me. But that value thing is so
it's
crucial.
so important. Yeah.
The Pinot thing is really interesting because I was a part of this in New Zealand with Martinborough and now with the Mornington Peninsula and the Yarra extended. But the yields in some of these regions have been pretty bad the last couple of years.
Consistently for the last few years, right? Yeah.
Yeah, quality's been really good, but yields has been really lean. And so it's like that, that farming mentality of like, well, next year will be better. And then it comes along and it's like, oh,
it's not.
And it hasn't been. And like I said, quality has been really good. And so the natural, the law of economics would be like, oh, supply and whatever, but there's someone else is filling that hole.
Yeah.
And I think that's tough because we're all looking at it going, like there is an insatiable demand for Pinot Noir at the grapes at the moment.
Yeah.
And the cost of it doesn't reflect what people should really be paying because the bottle price is not going to reflect.
It's not going to do that.
They're not going to do that, but it's like the fear of like, I've just got to have it because it's important for my brand and it's important to, for cash flow to keep that ticking over.
There's been some unbelievable Australian brand Chardonnay and Pinot that have nearly doubled in price in the last 10 years, but
I have actually had this. I had a conversation with the rep last week. I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's happened. I've kind of been out of the game for 2 years. I come back in and this thing's almost tripled in price.
Yeah.
Tell me why? Because what's happened? Like what has changed in the economics of that wine? And I think you touched on it as well. Like, and you don't have to give me exact numbers, but like when we talk about like A-grade Pinot Noir in this country, per ton, which is kind of how we talk about numbers in the wine industry from a cost perspective. Are we at double digits yet, or we past it?
We're not at double digit. Did you say for Pinot? Sorry.
Yeah, for Pinot.
Yeah, for Pinot. I mean, like, I wouldn't have thought there's anyone at double digits
What do you mean by
yet.
double digit?
But however, if you are growing your own fruit, so
Yeah.
you're not purchasing,
Yeah.
yes, because the small yields and your average cost per acre,
Yeah.
as a result, it's probably north of that, you know.
Yeah.
So that's and you got to wear all that. That's not
So we're talking about 10,000 a ton
Right.
for fruit.
Yeah.
But like that, like A grade fruit. If I was to go out tomorrow and plan something for next year, and I'm looking for A grade Pinot, what am I paying? 6, 7?
Yeah, I think depending on the region, like definitely
Yeah.
Mornington and Yarra would be the
Easy.
pointiest end of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I mean
so-
Tassie's obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
And out of a ton of fruit, how many bottles? are
Well,
you getting?
you generally get about 700 liters, so you know close to 1,000 bottles out of a ton of.
Maybe.
Why the
Yeah.
fuck would you be a farmer?
Well,
Like,
and that's the
thank
thing.
God they're here.
Yeah.
But holy hell! Before you
Yeah.
start talking about a lid, a glass, a
That's the
fucking
thing.
label, a distributor, a fucking like,
Yeah.
and then before you start talking about when we buy current vintage and we've got a winemaker or a wine rep going, you should lay that down for a few years. It's like,
How?
fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
I've been having this conversation a lot at the moment about a cellaring program. What does that look like? You know, like the great restaurants of the world have always had a cellar program where they would buy wine and knowing that it's not ready to drink. Like the Brisbane Club used to do it, to the point where I think at one point in time, Sam, who used to run the wine program there, did you ever meet Sam, Julian? Amazing old
Yeah.
Scottish bloke. Fuck, he was there
I think I
he was
met
there
you.
since 1977,
Yep.
I think. And he was buying Bordeaux and listing it 20 years later. And it's like, what an amazing the ability to do that is incredible. Like Le Tour d'Argent in Paris, same thing. But like they'd be like, no, it's not ready. It's like it's 60 years old. They're like,
They
no, it's
can't
not
afford
ready.
to pay their
Yeah.
phone bill, but they've got fucking $9 million worth of wine
Correct.
cellared in the
But
basement.
this is the thing. It's like there has to be a commitment from an owner to go, yep, you know what? We're just going to bury $3 million in the backyard. And then
Yeah.
the idea would be that when we bring it back, we're going to make a shit ton more money on it.
Note to Damien and Luke, that is fucking not me.
Yeah, it's not happening. But it is a thing where, you know, I think across the world we're drinking wines younger every year than we were the
Yeah.
year prior.
And we do try and do it too. We try and grab a handful of releases
Yeah.
and put them away.
But it's hard though, because it's sitting there, right? So you've
Yeah.
paid for it. It's
And-
like if Julian's got wine in the cellar and people are like, oh, can I have
Yeah.
it? And you're like, oh no, we don't
It's
really
a
want to sell it. It's
$50
like,
note sitting on the
right,
shelf.
exactly right.
So we'll
Yeah,
do
and
for
I
the
mean, like,
restaurant where we'll put it away, but it's hard
It's
to
much
do.
easier. It's much easier at the pointy end. You know, like when I was at Craggy, we used to sell through the global negotiant network, the Plaster Bordeaux, and like if you buy through those places, like one of the negotiants actually is they actually own Chateau Palmer, and so we went to their headquarters to kind of like sell the dream of I was selling the dream of Craggy, and like so they took me through the and like if you've got money and you're a top restaurant, you can buy a Palmer from any year you want. Like they're keeping stock available for sale. Like they're keeping
Wow.
commercial stock. So but that's going to cost,
Yeah.
and so
Someone's got to pay for that, because the
Someone's
opportunity
gotta pay
cost
for
of it
that, yeah.
sitting there is huge. And I
Yeah.
think the great wineries of Australia have always had a cellar program. They've always had museum releases and will continue to. And I think that is something that people need to understand is that, yeah, I'm putting on this wine that's 20 years old or 15 or 10 or 5 now. It's like 5 is almost museum release. And it's like, but there's a cost associated to that. It's not just sitting there and, in the vacuum. It costs money for it to sit there.
But it's more that it's the opportunity cost,
Yeah.
or your lost front up revenue. So it's
Yeah.
like you have to. I don't think the actual storage costs are probably that material, but it's more like
you're right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that opportunity cost is something that there's a number there.
Yeah, you're spending money on that before you spend it on something else.
Right.
You
Yeah.
got to pay for it to get counted every month.
Yeah.
You know.
And my first ever job when I was at Leeuwin Estate, this was unbelievable. Now I think about it. I remember the time thinking, like, what the fuck? But we were re-corking every single back vintage wine and converting it to screw cap.
Yeah.
So that was basically a cull. Yeah, like I'm talking this was like a 3-year program, so that they could go and because they'd been amazing at keeping back vintage stock.
Yeah.
So, but like the commitment to that, they were like they had a couple of shock and runs, and so they were like, right, we're just going to go for it.
We're done.
And we're done, and we want to be able to show people like any old Leeuwin estate from any year and have a high level, like the highest level of confidence that it's going to be the closure is not going to be the thing that's going to determine that wine's quality. Yeah.
It's such an expense. That's, I mean, you know, from a family, really, I mean, Dennis is an accountant, right? So it's like, that's,
can you imagine the
from him to
process
do
he
the
went
numbers
through
on
to
that and be like, are we going to do this or not? It's like, holy shit.
Imagine
But
who
again,
asked him to do that.
I think the thing is, it's the commitment though, that commitment of excellence. And there's, you know, it's one of those things where, like the Charlie Trotter book, which is just so good about, it's called Lessons in Excellence. And, you know, it's that idea of never accepting anything that's not good enough. Simple as that. You know, it's like, what's that? There's a quote from a guy that was the Major General of the Army here. It's so good. It's basically, it's along the lines of, whatever you walk past is what we accept. You know, and it's like, holy shit. And like just little things like in the restaurant where you walk past and someone's like, there's something on the ground, fucking pick it up.
Pick it up on the way to the restaurant.
Because, you know, it's just like all these little things, they all just have such a massive impact.
The numerous times I went to Charlie Trotter's and you see, if you're one of the first bookings there.
Subtle flex.
I was never a Duxton to school, so
twice, 2 times Dux.
The staff would sweep the street fucking 30 meters down the road outside. And he would go outside and check because he was like, the guest experience starts when they get out of the cab. Not they walk in the restaurant and go far.
Yeah, and so like I think like we're kind of circling back, but I know for me that was like I learned that at 2019. Like that was my base level, and it was
so good.
It's so good. Like I just wish it for any. I've said it to heaps of young crew, like when they're like, "Oh, where should I go work?" Like I was like, just go work somewhere for a couple of years. That is just like, you know, and a list that I won't name all there, but you can list several producers. Australia that will give you that ground training. You know, like that will give you that, and you know, there's no fluke that there's wineries in Australia which numerous great winemakers have been spawned from. Like it's because they
100%, and we can all name them right now, like, you know, and so similarly in New Zealand, you know, you've got similar things where you've got great people have gone through certain wineries there that they're never going to stay 50 years there. Like they're just not. You know, for me, and this is you know, because of the relationship I have with the Mills family, Ripon is that place for me in Central Otago where you look at the people that have worked there over a long period of time and you're like, what the fuck are we talking about? It's like, how have they all worked there? It's like, but there's a reason why they work there.
There's a set of standards that will never be broken. It doesn't matter whether it's you or in 100 years there'll be somebody else.
Absolutely.
And those standards will be.
But I also
so
think
when I went to Craggy, like I had to go and try and find an alumni program, and I was looking from the early years because Doug was from the States. The current winemaker for Silver Oak, Screaming Eagle, there's another one at Screaming Eagle, there's Literai, like there was like they'd all worked at Craggy. You fall on hope. It was crazy. It was like
Napa
curly, it was like unbelievable. I was like, this is insane, you know, like it's like if we all these great Aussie winemakers have gone and worked at just one winery in America. It just doesn't happen like that. You know, you have to be a really special place to attract young people who don't know yet that they're going to be great. They've got that DNA that they like. Something's motivated me to go there and
to seek out that place.
To seek out that place.
That's what we're talking about with chefs. It's like, you know, there was there was certainly a long period of time, there still is to a degree, where there's those chef chasers. Basically, people at a certain point in their career, they want to get Vue de Monde on their resume. They want to get Stokehouse on their resume. They want to get El Bulli or whatever the hell it is, you know.
We were talking with this is going back many years ago now, that when Peter McMahon, we were chatting with him about, he was the GM of the Stokehouse group. We're talking about the Van Handels wanted to do a Stokehouse dinner featuring all of the chefs, the exec chefs that have ever worked there.
You couldn't do it.
And I was like, well, that'd be fun.
It'd be 400 courses.
But then they showed me the list and I'm like, holy fuck. Like, I was one of those guys in Brisbane, but you got Lambie, you've got, like, the list goes on, Anthony Massara. But it's unbelievable. And there was that coming to Jesus moment where I went, and there's, you know, I'd like to think I'm a fairly humble guy. I had a lot of self-doubt going, fuck, probably next to those guys, I shouldn't be on that list.
Yeah, someone's made a mistake.
I gave it a fucking nudge, but that's you must go through that same process even with Stonier, because it's such an amazing fucking brand.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like,
No, and Stonier's has some incredible people like Steve James and
yeah,
Todd Dexter
Todd,
and
yeah,
Stu Marshall and Geraldine. Like, there's incredible people, and it's
yeah,
part of my role now is to try and touch base and learn as to what they, and Brian Stonier himself, like what it meant to him and why.
yeah,
And like I was gonna, look, I know I'm not old yet, but it's like when I was at Craggy, definitely something kind of switched on with regards to this big joy that you find now in mentoring. Like,
Yep.
it's
yeah,
unbelievable.
legacy.
It's like, yeah, it is the most rewarding thing of my
I
life.
agree.
Is
Yeah,
like
me too.
and that's actually now it's like that's all I want to do. I still want to be mentored. Like, that's actually like I
Yeah.
don't think you don't want to stop having that. But
No.
to mentor or to inspire a young person is
Oh,
single handedly that, yeah. And I mean, like, not to yeah, I like this is a probably a slightly more like complicated and difficult one, but you know, when I started in the industry in 04, 05, and I think about the early wineries, some of the ones I've been involved with, and not in America where I work with Louisa, but just some other opportunities and stuff. I just probably the gender diversity was really poor, like really
Yeah.
poor, and it's
yeah,
like, and I've been complicit in not like allowing, removing some of those barriers around harvest that can be difficult. And I know at Craggy there was like a big shift of like I was like, we just need to make this easier for the women that coming out that haven't had the opportunity. This is not me. Like, I'm not like trying to say I've done all I can do, and there's so much. And I know that my wife would completely challenge me on how much more there is to do. But
Yep.
that is actually like that is the next great thing that is happening in the industry, is to see like just that how that gender thing is just completely dissipated, and it's like trying to get rid of as much of that kind of masculine kind of energy as much as possible.
yeah,
Mate, all for that. I
same.
actually remember a conversation with Sam Connew a couple of years ago where it was just like someone said, "Oh, female winemaker," and she's like, "Just winemaker.
Yeah,
You can just say winemaker.
Yeah.
We don't need
yeah,
to talk about genitals at this point in time. It's just
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
winemaker." It's like fuck. And it was that kind of like that aha moment for me. It's like, yeah, you totally. It's
Yeah.
like, who
yeah,
fucking cares?
Yeah.
Why are we even
yeah,
discussing this? But then I'm like, I understand why we are discussing it as well, because it has been so poor, and there's lots of people that have done lots of amazing things, and there's still a lot to do, like you said. But that was a big thing for me. It was like, just start removing some of those monikers, and
Yeah.
maybe there will be a little bit of a subtle shift at some point in time, because yeah, I just don't care. I just like, just make me something decent to drink, and we'll be okay. So, but it is interesting you said that. So when you talk about like from this, do you mean like removing sort of the physicality of some stuff around vintage? Is that what you
No,
mean?
I think there's just been a shift. I imagine it's the same in hospitality though. Like, I think we've just kind of, vintage was like when I was yeah, vintage is like just like get on my back and let's go. Like, it's like however many hours in the day, 100-hour days,
Yeah.
100-hour weeks and stuff like that. And I think we're just like starting to shift it more into like more realistic, manageable timeframes, because we don't want to have burnout.
Yeah.
And so part of that, allows people who have got young kids to stay in that industry for longer.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm probably talking about more.
Yeah.
Not like making it. I mean, like, you always want to make the workplace more safe and what have you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I'm talking about. But just making
they're all related though as
yeah.
well. Like, if someone's
yeah.
been on a forklift for 19 hours, it's like something's probably going to fuck up at some point in time.
And
Yeah.
but by doing
Yeah.
that and placing emphasis on that, you're going to create a better product. I believe.
Absolutely,
Or
yeah.
you're certainly going to attract better people.
It's just
Yeah,
it's a cultural shift, right? That's the thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and like I know that like myself and one of my mates have talked about how bad that we've been at that. Like, that's like a hard shift for me. It's like
Yeah.
not to imagine being there every hour of the day, because it's like I'm an internal control freak and stuff like that, and I want to be across all the detail.
Yeah.
I don't know
And
what
if
you're
you
talking
have
about.
to be, yeah. So that's okay. You can
Yeah.
be, but like you have to kind of separate that from your team. Your team have to be able to go and be functional, normal humans, as opposed to psychopaths like the three people on this camera. But
I don't know what you're talking about. Corey's also here, so there's four of them.
Yeah.
He's the one that does all the hard work. There was something else.
Yeah.
I was just on that though as well. There's you know, and vintage is obviously a really, it's a busy time. Get that, no problems at all. The emotional toll of vintage on partners and you know, people we live with and all those kind of things should never be understated, because there is something, and I think, you know, I'm not saying everyone, but certainly for me, the first thing I do when I'm really, really busy, and like when we open market, for example, and I remember, you know, going home and Jen was like, "You can't work like this." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can." And she's like, "Yeah," it's just like, it's like, well, no, that's just what we do. It's like, yeah, exactly right. We're opening a restaurant. This is just what we do. But, you know, I also learned during that period, it's like I completely pissed her off for X amount of months whilst we were doing that. And it's like, fuck, I could have fucked that up like easily. And I don't think it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think that, you know, partners that come along for the ride in any business, I suppose, it's just not worth the risk.
No,
you know
look
what I mean?
What my wife's put up with me through all the years. It's like, it's fucking not fair.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, but we again, it says something probably more about them and how awesome they are. And not necessarily how shitty we are necessarily. I think
doesn't make it right, but you're
doesn't
exactly
make it right. But I think it's something that we need to be. I think as a rule, I think all of us need to be more aware of. And I think certainly for me, I mean, I've had a really, really shitty relationship with work my entire life, and I'm not great at certain things, and I'm constantly working on different bits and pieces, and to try and make sure that I am focusing on things outside of work, and that I can. One of my issues is switching off. My brain doesn't stop very easily. I mean, there's only 3 brain cells in there, but they fucking rock most of the time. So, you know, and there's certain things that I know that I can do that are better for me. It doesn't mean I do them all the time, but you know, that disconnect, I think, and it's really hard in vintage, right? Because everything's running 24/7. Like you're literally in a winery.
Honestly, it's fun. It's like, it's actually, you know, like, it's as much as it's like hard work, it's also like, it's the most fun. And so, like, I mean, to the partner thing, like, I'm fortunate, like my partner's in the industry. So, and we met in the industry. She's marketing manager at Giant Steps. And so she's been on this ride since the
shitty brand to sell, isn't it? Shitty brand, shitty wines, shitty winemakers. They were probably cleaning up at the Sydney Royal tonight with everything else that's going on there. Anyway.
And so she knows, but like, it doesn't make it any like easier for the kids when they're like, why is dad gone for like 3 months of the year? And so
who's dad?
But I mean, like,
but at the very least, like, you can sort of try and plan before or after. Probably after's. You can plan a few days off, try and get away, reset yourself. Because I think mentally, not only yourself, but everybody around you needs you to be on your A game. So you've got to make sure you plan that. Like we try with all the restaurants, we really try and plan all of our leaders to take a bit of a break before the holiday season, in particular Christmas. And then I'm pressing in October for everybody to be locking down holidays in February and March. So then when you're in the thick of it and you're in the shit in the middle of December, you can go, fuck, I've got 6 weeks and then I'm going to be in Byron, or I'm going to the Gold Coast, or I'm going away, and I can reset myself then. And I think that's so important.
But I mean, I don't think any of your staff would want to, like, I don't think anyone would have it any differently. I just imagine, like, I think we're all geared that way, and that's what attracts us to the industry. Like,
I agree. There's something wrong with all of us, I think, in some way, shape, or form. But you're right. That's why a lot of us get attracted to this industry in some way, shape, or form, and that's all the big umbrella of what we talk about. And you know, it's about maybe not fitting in, maybe not wanting to be sitting in an office 9 to 5 and you know, staring at a screen or whatever. Even though that's probably most of certainly what I do these days.
Especially for the ducks to the school.
The ducks has to go home and learn some more. So, like, you're not going to live that one down, mate. I can tell you that right now. But
I was the ducks in my own lunchbox.
I think.
No, I think, but I do. Yeah, I think that vintage is, it's a poison chalice. Like, you want it so bad, and then at the end of it, you're like, at the end, you're like, God, we need to go for rehab. But then you're like, you get to this, then you go for this point, you get to this point, and you're like, and I mean, I think we talked about, like, from the winemaking perspective, but definitely, like, you know, there's the growing season from the vineyard, which is also hectic. So it's like it goes into that part too. So,
it's a massive crescendo, isn't it?
But and that's the thing. There is, but I think also as well, like, a lot of businesses are trying to get rid of those peaks and troughs and just make it like a full rolling circle. But that just doesn't happen when you're growing something that only ripens at one certain time of the year. That's just what it is.
Yeah,
Totally agree.
I think machines, they are. Yeah, you're right. They are. Yeah, yeah,
It's tough.
yeah.
Mate, we got to wrap up. I reckon we could talk for another 3
Yeah.
hours, but
Yeah, sorry. It's just
no, it's
Mate,
good, mate.
fantastic.
It's been awesome. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
lovely to try some wines that you didn't have any hand in, but we
Thank you.
tried. We really did. We should have got some Craggies, but that's all right. That's all good.
No,
I
no,
think,
no.
yeah.
I much prefer to be like talking about. I mean, we didn't talk about Stonier probably.
No,
in
not
terms
really.
of-
But I mean, I
yeah,
think, you know, the
Yeah.
good thing is you're there. I think that any brand that gets you as a custodian from here on moving forward is
Very
very,
fortunate.
very fortunate. Absolutely. I think
Oh,
I'm
thanks, mate. Yeah.
I'm super excited to see what you do with that fruit, because it's always been really solid, and I'm really looking
Yeah.
forward to sort of see what you can do with it, and what the team can do with it. In particular, got a bit of a
Yeah.
soft spot for that part of the world, and that brand in particular, which I'll tell you about off air. But
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think for me it was really nice just to talk about some of those broader things about the the industry that sometimes usually on a podcast presentation it's all about brand, and I think that sometimes these kind of forums are nice just to discuss like the other things that make what we do beautiful
Yeah,
or complex and
agree.
whatever. Yeah.
100%. I
Yeah.
mean, it's about, for me, it's wine and hospitality in general. It's about
Yeah.
the people, mate. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So,
And mate, as a restaurant guy, you know you're a legend, and to grab
Yeah.
to grab an hour to chat with you is fantastic. And please keep it up, because the industry is a better place because you're in it. So
absolutely.
well
Oh, thank
done,
you so
and
much. Yeah.
congratulations for all the years you've put into it, and it's epic. You should be super proud.
Well, yeah, I'll be there as an 80-year-old napping on someone's door. So
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. We'll see you there.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Good on
See
you.
you.
Thanks, Julian. Cheers.